Hello, good morning, and welcome to Unacademy IAS, a one-stop destination for all the English medium civil services aspirants. Welcome to another session of the Hindu News Analysis dated 30th December 2024. In this session, I've taken up a total number of 12 articles, all from Hindu newspaper today, because I felt there are sufficient number of articles from Hindu itself. So totally I'll be discussing 12 articles. The whole idea is to make the discussion comprehensive so that it will address all of your requirements from current affairs to ace the civil services examination. So if you like this initiative, do not forget to hit the like button. And if you're yet to subscribe to our YouTube channel, kindly do it right now. Now, before I start the discussion, I have a very important announcement to make. Many of you will be targeting to clear the Civil Services Examination 2026 or even for that matter 2027. For you, we have an offer. If you take a subscription for 18 months, then you will automatically come under the coverage provided you meet certain other conditions under CSE Assure that we are offering to you. In simple terms, if you subscribe for this and above and meet certain conditions, and if you do not clear the examination in 2026, we will give you another extension of 12 months free of cost, so that you will get the assistance, you will get access to or continuous access to the online classes in English, Hindi and bilingual, access to the test series, mentorship assistance, which will help you in clearing or acing the civil services examination. Let me start the discussion. But before I start, while basically going through the various videos or the shorts in the YouTube and even reading the newspaper, I came across a very disturbing news. Some of the aspirants were protesting against the conducting, or let's say the process of examinations in Bihar. They have been facing certain action by the administration. I hope, and all the other members in the English team hope, that the issue is resolved soon and the aspirants will be given the right opportunity. Let me start the discussion. The first article is associated with a multi-purpose project that has been announced by the government in the state of Arunachal Pradesh. Now, what is the importance of this article? Couple of days ago, the government of China announced one of the largest irrigation projects. That is, they announced that they would be spending somewhere around $137 billion to develop or construct a dam in China that is specifically going to basically be constructed on the river that is Brahmaputra. Although I'm using the term Brahmaputra river, please understand, in different countries, because the river flows across different countries, the name in China is different, but let's use the Indian name Brahmaputra river. So the argument of the Chinese government was that the proposal to construct the dam on Brahmaputra was announced in the 14th 5-year plan that is going to be implemented from 21 to 2025, and all the studies that are supposed to be conducted to analyze the feasibility of this kind of a project have been done, and they will go ahead with construction of this kind of a dam. Now, this comes on the background of certain decisions that have been taken, certain meetings that have been conducted between India and China, which basically represented normalization of relations. Because mind you, after the clashes, that is border clashes at Galwan, back in 2020, the relations between India and China were anything but normal. There are a lot of issues, lot of policies or steps were taken by both the countries, which basically reduce the kind of interactions between these two countries. But in recent times, be it the meeting between the special representatives of both the countries or the leaders of both the countries, there was an indication that there is a normalization or there is certain, let's say, policies which will be undertaken to normalize the relation. In that background, if you see this announcement by Chinese government, it raises again concerns regarding the intentions of the government of China. Why? Mind you, although the government of China has announced that this is a project which will basically address, one, the irrigation requirements. That is, essentially there are certain regions where they are finding very difficult to get access to water to conduct irrigation. So when you construct a dam, you will be routing some of the water to address the water requirements in other parts of the region. That is one. And second one, their argument is this is a hydroelectric project. Hydroelectric project. That is, essentially they will be harnessing the potential here, and they'll be developing certain infrastructure to basically produce electricity. Hydro energy project. But having looked at these kind of, let's say, announcement done by China in the earlier projects as well. For example, there is one more river which flows through China and basically enters into 6 more countries. I'm talking about the Mekong River. The government of China has constructed multiple dams on Mekong River, specifically 11 dams. And not just 11 dams, it has also constructed more than 90 dams on the tributaries which are connected to the river Mekong. And what is the importance of this? The Mekong River not only flows through China, it also enters into 6 more other countries. And with the construction of this dam, now China is able to control how much water in this particular river flow, how much water will enter into other countries. Suddenly they can increase the water flow, they can contain the water flow. This kind of a terminology or this kind of a exercising that is done, the government of Arunachal Pradesh is using in this context the term the water bomb. Remember this. They are using a term called as water bomb. What is this water bomb? Imagine a dam is constructed. This will hold huge amount of water. And by far, please understand, the largest dam that has been constructed in the world has been constructed by China itself. It is known by the name of Three Gorges Dam. This is one of the largest dams in the world. And this particular proposal that has been put forward will be much larger, 3 times larger in terms of its potential compared to already existing largest dam which has been constructed by the same country. So understand the argument here. When such huge sized infrastructure is developed in the form of a dam, it will also be holding huge amounts of water. Now suddenly imagine the dam gates are open, and if the dam gates are open, huge amount of water will start flowing, and this can lead to flood-like situation in the regions which are lying under. And so the argument here is this kind of a water or the river water flow can be weaponized. The river water can be weaponized by the countries which are lying above compared to the lower riparian countries or the states. And that is one very important argument that you need to remember. Now, what is the connection to all of this? What is the connection of all of this to this newspaper article? As concerns were raised by many of the experts in India regarding the proposal which has been put forward by China, the Chinese representative couple of days ago clarified that they are not going to use any kind of strategic, let's say, infrastructure developed here to contain any other activities of other countries. And as such, China already has a contention that Arunachal Pradesh belongs to China. It should not be part of India. It should belong to China. Now, in that context, to look at the importance of this. Back in the year 2017, Niti Aayog, this was the proposal of Niti Aayog. That is, there should be construction of a dam in Arunachal Pradesh, which is basically named as Siang Upper Multi-Purpose Project. What will be the use of this? This project, that is, I'll start using the short form here, SUMP. This particular project, SUMP, will be used to produce electricity. This will be a hydroelectric project. It will be used to produce 11,000 megawatt of electricity. In addition to this, this can also be used essentially to contain any kind of, let's say, flood-like situation if there is excess water that is entering into the region. So in order to protect the region as well as to produce electricity, this proposal was put forward. But despite the proposal being given back in 2017, why even today there is a problem? Why we are not able to develop the project here? Feasibility has been announced now. Feasibility studies have been announced. Why we are not able to, right, let's say, implement the project here? The reason is there is a tribal community which resides in this region. The name of the tribal community is, please make a note of this, Adi tribal community. Now, the contention of this tribal community, which is residing in this region, is they are developing, or they are basically conducting the agriculture practices. They are producing food grains along this particular river flow. Now, if you construct a dam like this, if you construct a dam, obviously it will be containing a lot of water. And if it starts containing water, certain regions which will come before the dam, now these regions will become submerged. The regions will submerge, and many of these villages will lose the land that they are using for economic activity. Their livelihoods will be lost. They will have to be rehabilitated now in some other region. So the contention of this tribal community is, after independence, when we were basically conducting shifting cultivation along the hills, the government itself asked us, don't be involved in shifting cultivation. Basically, start cultivating along the river line like this. Now, you have proposed a new project. You are basically proposing a project that is an irrigation project. As a result of this, we have to discontinue farming. We have to get relocated, etc. And many of these people in this community are questioning to what extent the argument of water bomb, which is being pitched by the government official, will have such a huge impact on the population residing in the region. So these are certain very important points associated with the SUMP that has been proposed by the government, which is supposed to be implemented in the state of Arunachal Pradesh. Okay, now next article, small saving schemes. In 2025, there might be a change in the small saving rate of interest. Now, some of you might be thinking, sir, what is the small saving scheme? Why should I read about it? Is there any connection to civil services? I want to become a civil servant. You are telling me about small saving scheme. There is a connection. I will show it. Have patience and listen here. In case of India, the government of India, in order to mobilize the savings of the middle class households, because the rich class anyways will have various investment avenues, but for the poor class as well as the middle class, there are very few investment opportunities. So in order to attract investments, in order to promote savings and investments from these kinds of households, they have introduced a concept called as a small saving schemes. I've written triple yes here. Small saving schemes. Now, what is this idea of a small saving schemes? Small saving schemes basically represents different types of investment opportunities that are available for investors in India, which have been introduced by government of India. Because if I simply say these are introduced and these are investment opportunities, suddenly one of you, or let's say many of you, will simply ask me, then what is the difference between a mutual fund and this? Because that is also an investment opportunity. This is also a saving and investment opportunity. But please remember, these are introduced by government of India, and the government generally uses various financial institutions and various other, let's say, authorities to implement these kind of schemes. And because it has been introduced by the government, please remember, these carry sovereign guarantee. These carry sovereign guarantees. What do you mean by sovereign guarantee? The government guarantees the repayment under these schemes. Any example? Right? I'll give you a couple of examples. Kisan Vikas Patra, KVP, Kisan Vikas Patra. PPF, Public Provident Fund. There is a National Savings Certificate, Senior Citizens Certificate, etc. All these are essentially part of the small savings schemes. Now, until very recently, please understand, there was a different methodology that was introduced or used in order to determine the interest rate on these kinds of investments that you could have done or I could have done. But from 2016, the Government of India, that is specifically the Ministry of Finance, introduced a new system wherein on quarterly basis, the government would keep on announcing the change or the applicable interest rates. Is the point clear? Whatever instruments are there under this, on these instruments on quarterly basis, the government would keep on announcing, that is Ministry of Finances or Ministry of Finance would keep on adjusting, readjusting or continuing the interest rate that is applicable, that is to be given to the investors. Now, how do they generally determine the interest rate? Remember this. They generally use the yield rate. They generally use the yield rate on government securities to connect and provide and decide basically the interest rate. They would basically use the yield rate on government securities to determine what is the interest rate on these small saving schemes. For example, just for sake of understanding, Senior Citizen Savings Scheme. It's a type of a small saving scheme. In that, imagine Government of India will announce interest rate to you. In this quarter, let's say the government securities yield rate. Now, many of you will simply ask me a question, what is yield rate? Yield rate essentially means what is the rate of interest that an instrument will give you. What is the rate of return that the instrument will actually give you on your investment? For example, if you invest 100 rupee and if you earn, let's say, right, 10 rupees, then your yield rate will be 10%. But if your investment is 90 rupee and if you earn returns of 10 rupee, then your yield rate will be more than 11%, 11.111, right, till infinity. So, what is yield rate? How much is the actual rate of interest that the instrument will give you in return? That is called as, right, let's say the yield rate. So, government securities yield rate keep on fluctuating. For example, if RBI changes repo rate, if RBI will change the repo rate is essentially a short-term lending and borrowing rate of interest. So, don't you think in the market, if the repo rate changes, it's a rate of interest, by the way, short term. If rate of interest in the market changes in the form of repo rate, don't you think the yield rate will also be influenced? Of course, yes, the point here is, it's not just a repo rate that will influence the yield rate. There are many other factors also which will influence the yield rate in the market, right? So, please remember that. So, the point that I was trying to convey here is very simple. The government will keep on tracking the yield rate. As the yield rate keeps on changing, automatically they will adjust the rate of interest applicable on, let's say, Senior Citizen Savings Certificate, right, or Kisan Vikas Patra or National Savings Certificate, etc. So, they would simply connect the interest rate to the yield rate. Done. This is point number 2. Now, why it is there in the discussion? Listen to me carefully. Very recently, we expected the Reserve Bank of India to reduce the repo rate. RBI, that is Monetary Policy Committee, did not do that. But in the month of January, February, March, etc., we expect RBI with new RBI governor and new members in the Monetary Policy Committee, we expect that the repo rate would be reduced. Point number 1. Point number 2, if the repo rate is reduced, automatically it will influence the yield rate on G securities. And as such, the yield rate on G securities have become softer in recent months. Softer means they have come down. They have come down in recent months. So, the expectation is with the change in the yield rate and even added with this, the reduction expected in the repo rate, the government might reduce, I repeat, might reduce the interest rate on the small savings certificate. This is one side of the argument. But there are also certain experts who say government might not do this. Government may not be inclined to reduce interest rate on the small saving schemes. Why? Two very important points. Please look at the inflation rate. Look at what is the inflation rate. Inflation rate for the last 2 months, that is specifically for the month of October and November, inflation rate has remained above 5%. So when inflation rate, which was less than 5, has gone above 5%, it simply means the earnings, the real earnings will come down. Because the inflation will increase the price of commodities, and if your interest rate also comes down, let's say before interest rate comes down, with higher inflation, the prices of the commodities will increase. And with higher prices of the commodities, now you will have to spend more money. If you have to spend more money, you will have to earn more interest. But on the other side, if the government will reduce the interest rate on the small savings certificate, will it not hurt the investors? Will it not reduce the real interest earned by the investors in the small savings schemes? That is the first consideration. The second consideration, this is also equally important. In the recent months, it has been seen that lot of these investors, including middle class households, they have started investing more and more money in financial instruments. For example, in the stock market, they have started investing more money in mutual funds, SIPs, etc. This is a structural shift. It is not a temporary change. Remember this. The former RBI governor, Mr. Shaktikanta Das, argued that this is a structural change. And that is one of the reasons why bank deposits are being hurt. So in this kind of a situation where we are already saying lot of the investors moving their investments into another type of an instrument. And if government will reduce interest rate, let's say on PPF, on Kisan Vikas Patra, etc., then more and more investors will move away from investing in such instruments. And these investments are important for the government. I'll tell you how. Listen to me carefully. Before that, I'll write it here. Right? More investors moving away. Okay, so why these instruments are so important for the government? The government annually incurs a problem of deficit. Right? That is, when the budget is announced, government will show that it has to spend more money. Compared to that, its earnings are lesser. And in order to bridge the deficit, government borrows from the market. One of the borrowings that the government generally does is from a fund called as NSSF, National Small Savings Fund. And the National Small Savings Funds, essentially it is a public account. The money in the NSSF is basically the sum total of all the money that is collected from the small savings schemes. So have a look at this. The schemes are announced by the government. Money is collected from investors. It is pooled into NSSF. And from this NSSF, certain amount of money is taken by the government for bridging the deficit. So if SSS collections will go down, NSSF collection will also go down. And if this goes down, it will put a lot of pressure on bridging of deficit problem for the government of India. So that is the importance of this newspaper article. Be very careful. Lot of conceptual understanding you need to have to understand and answer anything related to these kind of articles. Okay. Now, I've given an MCQ based on this. If you know the answer, let me know in the chat section. If not, don't worry. I will tell you the answer at the end of the session today. Consider the following statements. 3 statements are given. Finance Ministry announces interest rates on SSS on quarterly basis. The SSS carries sovereign guarantees. All the amount collected under SSS are counted as part of Consolidated Fund of India. Right? I'll let you know the answer after some time. Next, there is a report which has been published regarding internet shutdowns. Internet shutdowns. What are the important points from this article? Let's go point by point. Point number 1. Very often you see that either the state government or the central government will impose internet blockade or internet shutdowns in certain parts of India. In Manipur, in Jammu and Kashmir, and in many of these states, in the past also we have seen these kind of shutdowns are done by the government. What is the logic behind it? Why does the government opt for an internet shutdown? Government generally gives these kinds of arguments. Point number 1, the government simply says there can be a certain incident, and this incident will trigger lot of clashes in the region. There can be an announcement by the government, a policy announcement. These kind of announcements might trigger opposition in certain regions of the states or in certain states. Now, we do not want these kind of clashes to arise and keep on increasing. That can happen if there is internet connectivity. The clashes can happen, and I hope you understand this. When we are connected with internet, it is very easy to mobilize people. Very easy. I will have a group, or you people will have a group. I will send a message. You will keep on sharing that message with your, let's say, friends in the group, and from one group to another group, the message will keep on spreading. People will congregate. People will basically form a group and start protesting. It can even become violent. So mobilization of people for, let's say, the protest can be done very easier, and that can turn violent. Second argument is, imagine there is certain, right, let's say, information that is not supposed to be there in the public domain, or certain pictures which are not supposed to be there in a public domain. That kind of a message can easily be circulated using internet. Now, if I impose a blockade on the usage of internet, if that facility is not available, service is not available, the dissemination of this kind of a sensitive information can be stalled by the government. For example, let's say there are certain terrorists who are there in a region, specific region, and they are communicating with each other. Can you impose a blockade over internet? But again, I hope you understand. It doesn't mean that these kind of measures are always effective. There are concerns also, there are limitations also. I'll come to that in some time. So that is the second argument that has been put forward by Government of India. That is essentially dissemination of sensitive information can be controlled. And in the third argument, what if it is a fake news? What if it is a fake news? For example, very recently, right, in case of some of the protests that have been conducted, wherein, right, let's say surveys are being conducted in certain mosque, right, basically somebody will take a photo and right, spread it, put it in the WhatsApp, which may not be true, and as a result of this, right, let's say there will be clashes, there will be, right, violence, which will be outcome of these clashes. So it can be used to basically counter the fake news. So these are some of the arguments that are generally put forward by Government of India or the state governments whenever they want to control and impose, let's say, a ban or a shutdown over the usage of internet. But at the same point of time, there are certain concerns also. There are certain concerns. What are the concerns here? Point number 1, for example, you are listening to the class live. You're looking at the YouTube live session and you're basically gathering information. Many of you might be part of online classroom program. Many of you, right, basically will be gathering or getting lot of knowledge using internet as a source of learning. Now, if government will suddenly impose a shutdown over internet, don't you think the learning would be affected? Right, your learning would be affected. You do not have access to the source now, or you do not have internet services. That is first. And after pandemic, I hope you understand this. There are more and more schools, more and more colleges, right, more and more universities that are offering online courses. Second point, and this is also, right, much more important. This is much more important. If the government will impose a shutdown over internet, if you're working from home, if you're basically involved, you're a businessman who is conducting all the businesses, providing all the services online. With the blockade over internet, don't you think your economic activity would be affected? Your economic activity would be affected. This is much more dangerous, because please understand, under the Constitution, under Article 19, there is a fundamental right that is given to you to basically practice the business, practice economic activity. Is this not violation of your fundamental right? What about right to information? Because the Supreme Court of India has held even the right to information as a fundamental right. By imposing the internet shutdowns, is the government not violating the fundamental right there? So there are various concerns which have been raised against the practice of internet shutdowns as well. Now, what is the connection to all of this? There is an institution by the name of Software Freedom Law Center. Software Freedom Law Center. The Software Freedom Law Center says the internet lockdowns which were imposed in India have become very less now. Have become very, very less compared to the lockdowns which were imposed earlier. For example, in the year 2023, the number of internet lockdowns that were imposed were 96. In 2024, as per this particular report, this has come down to 60. It has come down to 60. But having said so, the report also says there are certain concerns even today. What are the concerns? For example, according to the Supreme Court judgment, as per the Supreme Court judgment, whenever the lockdowns are supposed to be imposed, that is internet lockdowns or internet shutdowns are supposed to be imposed, essentially there is certain practice that is supposed to be followed. Document that is supposed to be published. The government of India in the House or in the Parliament has announced that as of now, there is no study which has been conducted by the government which has evaluated the impact of internet lockdowns or internet shutdowns. No study has been conducted basically focusing on the impact of it. And second, the government also has clarified that there is no central database which will keep a number or which will basically track the number of internet shutdowns done by the government. Right? So these are the two very important points. In addition to this, couple of more very important points now. Whenever you talk about the internet lockdowns, please remember earlier the provisions regarding the internet lockdown was basically provided under Telegraph Act. Under Telegraph Act. But this particular Telegraph Act, now the government has basically introduced a new piece of legislation, that is a Telecommunications Act. Telecommunications Act. Now the provisions under the Telecommunications Act are being used by the government to basically impose a, let's say internet lockdown. What are the important provisions in this? Important provisions are this order to impose, let's say a shutdown of internet, to basically stop providing the services of internet. It has to be provided. The order has to be signed through certain government officials only. It has to be signed. The order has to come from government officials. What kind of government official? At the central level, the secretary, that is Home Secretary shall issue the order. At the state level, again within the Home Secretary, at the state level, let's say the Home Department, the Secretary of the Home Department shall issue the order. So only from these kind of officials, the order has to be signed and issued. That is the first point. Point number two, once the order has been issued, the order has to clearly say what is the region wherein they want to impose this kind of a blockade over internet access, for what number of days they want to impose a blockade, what are the reasons why they want to impose a blockade over the access to internet. So clearly all the conditions will have to be met. Conditions in the form of the geographical, let's say coverage of it, the time period of it, etc. And even when these kind of, let's say blockade is imposed, The new rules say it cannot be imposed for more than 15 days. It cannot be imposed for more than 15 days. And even if it is issued, the order is issued by, let's say, the Secretary of Ministry of Home Affairs, even in that case, there shall be a review committee. Understand this. There shall be a review committee, right? A review committee shall be set up, which will basically take up the order that has been issued by the government official and conduct the review whether the order has been issued correctly or not, whether all the conditions have been met by the official, etc., etc. And this review committee has to take up this in the next 24 hours. Once the order has been issued, in the next 24 hours, the review committee has to take up the review. And in the next 5 days, the order, whether it is valid or invalid, that has to be decided by the review committee. Done? Right? So these are certain very important points associated with the internet shutdowns. The important point to make note in addition to all of these points is that the number of shutdowns have actually come down. The number of shutdowns used by the government, either by the center, by the state, have actually come down. Earlier, it was very prevalent. Now, it is much, much lower. That is actually a good news. Okay. Now, next article regarding overseas voters or overseas electorate. Now, point number 1, please understand, many of the times we keep on using the term electorates, electorates, right, or electors and voters interchangeably. Many of the times we keep on using the term elector and voter interchangeably. According to Election Commission of India, both are not one and the same. Both are different. If you are eligible and if you register to vote, I'll repeat the statement. If you are eligible and if you register to vote, you are called as an elector. And, right, you are registered to vote and you vote, you are called as a voter. Is the difference clear to all of you? Please understand. Is the difference between both of them clear to all of you? If you register to vote, you are called as an elector. And if you vote, you are called as a voter. So, elector is different, voter is different. Both are not one and the same. This is point number 1. Point number 2, we are the citizens of India. We are residing in India. We are there in India. So, obviously, we will register and we will also vote. Although, a lot of us, basically, because of multiple reasons, we might register but might not end up voting. Will basically, right, not exercise the voting right. But in addition to the citizens who are residing in India, there is also one more section of citizens called as NRIs, non-resident Indians. Citizens who are not residing in India but are outside India. They might be outside India for, let's say, education purposes. They might be outside India for, right, let's say, work purposes, etc. So, work related or for education, these are the citizens but not residing in India but outside India. So, by virtue of being citizens, the government of India made an amendment to the Representations of People's Act and gave the right to even the NRIs to cast their vote. This was in fact done back in the year 2010. So, Government of India amended the RP Act of 1950 and gave the right even to the NRIs, basically under section 20A of RP Act, gave the right to even these people, these citizens, to cast their vote. But there was one condition. What was the condition? They will have to physically come. They will have to physically come to India, present their passport in the voting booth and cast their vote. Now understand, they have to come back to India, present the passport in the polling booth, show the passport and then they are allowed to vote. Now imagine you are a software engineer who has gone for 6 months, let's say, to USA. Just for casting a vote, if you have to come back, will you not become an economist at that point of time? And when I say economist, I mean you will start doing the calculation, CSAT, you will start using at that point of time. You will basically say, if I have to go this much amount of expenditure, I'll have to apply for leave here. loss of pay. I'll have to come back again this much amount of expenditure. And if I go there, I will have to spend money on food, etc., etc. So your argument will be, economically, it doesn't make any sense. So many people, many of the, let's say electors who are registered, in fact, according to article, the total number of NRIs, that is overseas Indians, the electors who are registered are 1.2 lakh. 1.2 lakh, and this has increased after the latest Lok Sabha elections, or even before that it has started increasing. But out of 1.2 lakh, very small number of people, very small number of electors are coming back to India and are casting their vote. And it should not be surprising to you, out of 1.2 electors, highest number, back in 2019, the data has been provided for, the highest number are from Kerala. How much? 99,000. 99,000 are from Kerala. Despite having 1.2 lakh electors, that is the overseas Indians who are registered to vote, very small proportion has actually come back and voted. Why? What is the problem? Like I said, it will become very costly for them to come, apply for leave. The employer may not allow you. You are a student, you have, let's say, certain things to take care of when you are studying or where you are studying, etc. For this purpose, very small percentage actually comes to India and goes back. And before you start asking me, sir, is it not a problem? Why has the government of India not done anything to address this problem? Listen to the story now. Like I said, earlier the government amended the Representation of People's Act and allowed the NRIs to come to India and cast their vote. But the condition was they will have to come physically and cast the vote. At that point of time itself, that is after 2010, multiple petitions were filed in the Supreme Court of India by many of these NRIs. They basically asked the government, this is not possible for us. How can you expect me to come all the way from another country, let's say USA, which is very, very far away, to India to cast a vote? Very costly, time consuming, so many constraints are there. Supreme Court of India, bunched all these petitions, and at that point of time, the Attorney General, representative of Government of India, argued and basically told Supreme Court of India that the Government of India has taken up this matter. The Government of India is already considering this matter. The NRIs need not be worried. We will have a solution to this kind of a issue. Now, because the submission was done by Attorney General, Supreme Court of India basically removed all of these petitions or ruled, basically saying that government will address the issue. Now come to the next point in the story. The government in 2018, the 16th Lok Sabha, the government in 16th Lok Sabha introduced a bill according to which certain relaxations would be provided to NRIs. This was passed in Lok Sabha, but it was not introduced in Rajya Sabha. Passed in Lok Sabha, not introduced in Rajya Sabha. And in 2019, Lok Sabha elections were conducted. The 16th Lok Sabha was dissolved. So what will happen? The bill lapsed. The bill basically lapsed. So whatever was promised by Government of India, those promises or those, let's say changes which were proposed were not implemented. After that, there is one more point to this story. The Election Commission of India. Election Commission of India gave two proposals to the government. The two proposals were, one, we can basically ask for proxy voting. We can basically allow the NRIs concept of a proxy voting. What is this proxy voting? Imagine you are sitting in USA, you are an NRI, you are earning huge amount of money, but even then you don't want to come back to India to cast the vote. Instead of you, somebody else will be casting the vote upon your direction. That is essentially the concept of a proxy voting. For example, in your colleges or even when I was there in a college, the concept of proxy attendance, your friend is absent, but he should not be losing or she should not be losing the attendance. So when his or her name is called, you will basically say present. So proxy attendance. So apply the same logic here. You are an NRI, you are sitting in the another country. essentially on your behalf, somebody else will be casting vote. But you are, right, basically it is like you are voting. Government of India said no. No way, this is not possible. Why? What is the guarantee that you asked your representative to vote for a particular candidate, but your representative who is basically conducting the proxy voting will vote for another candidate? How you sitting in USA will be able to verify that? That's very difficult, right? So there are dangers. There is a problem in terms of having proxy voting. What is the alternative solution? The Election Commission of India provided one more alternative solution. That is essentially the concept of electronically transmitted postal ballot system. Electronically transmitted postal ballot system, ETPBS. What is this ETPBS? Under ETPBS, essentially, right, understand the process here. You are an NRI. You are registered as an electorate. You are registered as a voter. Now you will basically request, right, through a form. You will apply for a form online. You will request for, right, let's say voting through the system of ETPBS. Now, once you submit this particular form online, right, voting, that is basically a ballot paper will be given to you. You can take the ballot paper, cast your vote, either send this particular ballot paper back to, right, let's say the Election Commission through the post, or you can simply drop it, right, at, let's say, the offices of Government of India, right, which is present in your country. Drop it, right, basically in the External Affairs Ministry offices which are present there, simply drop it. So either you can drop this particular ballot paper or, right, you can send it by post. Government of India so far has not accepted even this kind of a solution. Reason being, government says, I do not have sufficient number of people working in these offices outside India. Embassies, in a nutshell, I do not have sufficient number of people. Even if I have sufficient number of people, this concept of collecting the ballot paper, sending it back, etc., will be an additional burden to this workforce. So I don't want to do that. Second, even if I send, let's say, ballot paper, how do I guarantee that it is reaching the right voter or right electorate? How do I ensure that? I'll have to keep on checking whether this person is the voter or not, right? And that is very cumbersome process. I do not want to do that. That is the precise reason, although the two solutions which have been provided by Election Commission of India, it said we are ready to do this, especially ETPBS, because right now ETPBS is available in India. It is available, right? How? To whom it is available? It is available if, right, let's say you become, you clear the civil services examination, you will be appointed as a representative of Government of India in the United Nations. You are present in the office of United Nations. Now you have to cast a vote here. You cannot come all the way. So government will, that is the Election Commission, will basically allow you to vote through ETPBS. The service personnel, that is, let's say you are involved in military, right, army, air force, etc. If you are located somewhere else in the border region, we cannot call you back like this to cast a vote and go back. So in this case, we already have the system. So why are we not using the same kind of a system even to allow the NRIs to cast a vote? Right? That is essentially the discussion that has been done in this article. Be careful. Very, very novel kind of a or niche kind of a article that has been published in Hindu. Done? Okay. So associated with this, one more MCQ. The NRIs are allowed to vote in Indian elections since the implementation of Representations of People's Act. Proxy voting and ETPBS is not available to any elector in India. Kerala has the highest number of overseas electors. How many of the statements are true? Please have a look at this. I will give you the right answer, key answer, after some time. Next article, Spadex mission or Spadex mission. Right? What is the Spadex mission? Listen to me carefully. The Government of India, that is through ISRO, has the objective of setting a space station just on the lines of International Space Station. We also have, right, we also want to have a Bharatiya Antariksha Space Station or Bharatiya Antariksha Station. Not only this, There is also, right, basically a project in the pipeline to send, right, humans, that is Indians, to space, to the moon, etc. Now, when you want to, right, basically implement all these kinds of, let's say, the space projects, you need to have better kind of a technology and facilities. And one such kind of, let's say, facility that, or let's say one kind of technology that you must have is the concept of space docking. The space docking, that is essentially, right, this experiment or this mission is named as the space docking experiment. Okay, space docking experiment. Right, what do you mean by docking here? Those who have watched English movies, right, for example, Interstellar, will know this. Others, don't worry. Right, don't fall into, let's say, inferiority complex and say, sir, should I have watched that movie? Will I not pass UPSC now? Absolutely no. Essentially, docking here means, right, let's say there is right, a station, there is one more satellite which will come, or vehicle which will come. You will be having a kind of technology that this vehicle will be parking, right, in the station like this. Simple. Just like vessels, just like ships will come to the shore and will be parking, same concept. Okay, don't worry about it. So as of now, there are very few countries around the world. For example, USA has this kind of a technology. China, Russia have this kind of a technology. We also want to develop this kind of a technology so that, let's say, in the future, if I have, right, let's say space station, if I develop a space station by India, you should have docking technology there. If I want to send people to the moon, if I want to send people to, right, let's say other space probes, etc., you should have, right, capability of space docking. And this is being tried by ISRO, and this mission will be conducted today. Right, today, that is, this particular flight is supposed to be, or it is scheduled at 9:58 p.m. today. That is 30th of December 2024. So in this mission, two very important points. First one, there is this concept of, understand this, right, that is SDX01 and SDX02. Okay, that is SDX01, SDX02. These are the two very important spacecrafts. Right, the SDX01, right, understand this, right, this will be released first, right, much before, or let's say just before SDX02, this SDX01 will be released, and SDX02 will be released after that. Essentially, the article simply says, or even the ISRO video says, right, these spacecrafts will be, right, at lower Earth orbit. And when I say lower Earth orbit, please do let me know in the chat section. What is the highest altitude till which you can call lower Earth orbit? Right, according to the ISRO, it basically says the SDX01 and 02, both weighing around 220 kgs, will be released at 470 kilometer altitude. That is under LEO. Now, they will be released and we will basically track, right, that is essentially these, right, two spacecrafts over a period of time, that after, right, rotating around the Earth like this, they will be, right, docking. They will basically be docking. That is, they will be connecting with each other. The distance is expected to be 10 to 20 kilometers. But after a certain point, both of them will start moving towards each other. Essentially, one we are using to move towards the other, and using both of these spacecrafts, there will be a docking conducted. That is, essentially, we will connect both of the spacecrafts, and we will also try out transfer of electricity from one spacecraft to another, and after that, undocking will be conducted. Right, essentially, we are trying out this technology of, right, a space docking as well as undocking. Right, so this is going to be done for the first time in India. Okay, this is point number one. Point number two, this is a PSLV satellite. PSLV satellite. The satellite that will be used for the launch will be PSLV C60. PSLV C60. This satellite in the fourth stage, the satellite in the fourth stage will also be releasing 24 other satellites. 24 other satellites. Okay, so in the fourth stage, it will be releasing 24 other satellites, which are basically 14 which are developed by ISRO and 10 are developed by, right, basically the academia, private sector, etc. Right, so these are the two very important points associated with the PSLV C60 launch, which will basically give impetus to the space docking experiment, very famously called as Spadex mission by ISRO. Okay, done. Okay, next one, PM internship scheme. PM internship scheme. The article simply says the government of India has received 6.2 lakh applications under this initiative. This initiative was announced as a part of the July budget that was announced by the government. In this budget, multiple reforms have been announced by the government, and when I say government, finance minister, to promote skilling, to promote employment. One of the very important initiative is the PM internship scheme. Under the scheme, where the program will be run for 12 months, right? This program will be run for 12 months. That is, if you are an applicant and if you are selected, you will be provided, right, internship scheme for, internship for a period of 12 months. In these 12 months, the selected candidates who are in the age group of 21 to 24 years will be, right, will be working or will be conducting their internship in the top 500 companies in India. The top 500 companies have been selected for the implementation of this scheme. So for this only, the government of India asked, right, the government of India has asked, right, the applications to be done. The number of applications which government has received is 6.2 lakh applications. Okay. Now, apart from this, apart from these particular points, please remember, out of the 12 months, at least 6 months, you will be expected to work in the company, essentially getting or learning the skill sets that are to be provided during the training process, at least 6 months. And every month under this initiative, you will be given a stipend of 5,000 rupees. You will be given a stipend of 5,000 rupees. Out of 5,000, 500 rupee will be provided by the company. The company will give you 500 rupees and the government will transfer the remaining 4,500 rupees into your bank account. That is Aadhaar seeded bank account under the model of direct benefit transfer. Last point associated with this, the company which will be spending this 500, right? The company is giving you a stipend of 500 rupees every month. So the company can simply claim this 500 rupees in addition to all the other expenditures. For example, for training you, there will be certain expenditure. For providing you certain material, there will be certain other expenditure. So other expenditure, including the training plus 500 rupees, the company can claim it as a part of its corporate social responsibility. CSR, corporate social responsibility. Done? Okay, so these are certain important points related to the PM internship scheme, which was announced in July and has been implemented from the month of October in India, that is in 2024. Okay, done. So associated with this, one more MCQ. Consider the following statements regarding PM internship scheme. Under this, the applicant has to be in the age group of 21 to 24. The government monthly will provide 5,000 rupees directly in the bank account. The company is allowed to count only the 500 rupee per month paid under the scheme as part of CSR. Okay, how many of these are true? Do let me know. Otherwise, don't worry. I will give you the key later. Explore UPSC CSE. I couldn't understand role of PALV in space docking. My dear, one is a rocket. You need a rocket, right? Right, what is the role of a rocket? Rocket will basically take the, right, let's say satellites to the orbit. Right, so PSLV is that particular rocket. In the fourth stage, there are 24 payloads. But in the other stage, the 2 other spacecrafts will also be released. Right, so you need rocket to carry these vehicles, to carry these payloads into the space. Those who are thinking, sir, what about editorials? Where are the editorials? You did not discuss editorials. Don't tell me that you will not discuss editorials. Don't worry, don't panic. I'm covering editorials as well. So the first editorial today, right, that I'll be discussing will be one nation, one election and a representative democracy. Now regarding one nation, one election, I have discussed earlier what are the benefits, what are the concerns. Even Chetan sir also has discussed the concern and benefits. Now in this article, right, in this article, what is given? The discussion in the article is not related to one nation, one election, pros and cons. No. And if it was, I would not have taken this up because it will be simply a repetition for you. What the article discusses is, what is the process that is being followed or that has been followed by the government to introduce the bill for one nation, one election. Is the point clear to all of you? What is the process? The process that was followed by the government to introduce multiple bills in the parliament, which will basically will be amending certain provisions in the constitution, and as a result of which government expects to bring in the concept of ONOE from 2034. The process that was followed, was it right essentially correct? That is essentially the point that is being discussed in the article by these two authors or these two, right, let's say writers. Now let me explain to you what is the concern they have raised. Whenever a bill has to be introduced in the parliament, essentially before the introduction of the bill, the public comments are sought. Right, the government seeks, and again this is not just applicable to government by the way. For example, RBI wants to implement a policy. SEBI wants to implement a policy. Right, have you not seen they asking for your inputs? They'll basically say these are the things we want to implement. What is your viewpoint? Please provide us with your inputs so that we can address if any concerns are there from your side. So in the same way, here also the government which has proposed or which has introduced bills in the parliament which will be amending the constitution, the proposal should have been put forward in the public 30 days prior, or right, a 30 days a time period should have been provided to the public to react, to provide inputs. And this is not just right a notional number. This is not the number which is provided by anybody. It is according to the Consultation Policy 2014. The Consultation Policy 2014, which has been introduced by the government, simply says that whenever a policy has to be implemented, a bill has to be implemented, these kind of bills, or let's say the policy first has to be put in the public domain and the inputs should be sought. Right, so 30 days is supposed to be provided. How many days were provided in case of the bill that will be implementing ONOE? The government basically provided just 10 days. The government provided only 10 days for experts to read and provide inputs. Point number one. Point number two, whenever the policies or let's say this kind of a consultation is conducted by the government, lot of explainer documents are provided. Lot of explainer, that is basically the documents which will provide you information regarding what are the provisions currently, right? What were the, right, let's say, what were the implications of this? What is being proposed now? What are the implications of that? What are we trying to achieve with this, etc. Lot of explainer documents are provided. But in this case, with this bill, right, the authors simply say no such documents were put forward by the government. No such explainer documents were given by the government, which basically again undermines the argument of having efficient consultation with the stakeholders. Right, you should have efficient consultation. Right, so argument is one, sufficient number of days was not provided. Second, the documents which will provide lot of information were not given. And the third one essentially is whenever these documents are put forward and the inputs are sought, right, certain, let's say paperwork, certain information has to be provided by us when we respond to that. But in this case, only yes or no questions were asked, which basically the authors of the article simply say shows that government has already decided to implement this policy. And just for sake of conducting the consultation, they are conducting the consultation. The decision has already been done. Right? So, argument of the authors is, leave aside the benefits or the concerns associated with one nation, one election. Yes, there is a lot of benefit. At the same point of time, there are a lot of concerns also. But the whole process through which the bills have been introduced raise certain questions regarding the process that are supposed to be followed by the government. Okay, right? So these are certain important things that have been mentioned in the article. Apart from that, same things, the benefits, the issues, right, related to ONOE. But in addition to all of this, they have given certain excerpts, certain pointers from the book that has been written by, right, Jai Prakash Narayanan. Right, Jai Prakash Narayan has written a book by the title A Plea for Reconstruction of Indian Polity. In this book, multiple concerns regarding the political system that we are following have been raised, and the same pointers also have been provided in this article. For example, in a country such as India, where we have multiple political parties, there might be a situation where a dominant national political party will basically take over the discussion of policies. That is, regional issues will be ignored. A national issue which is pushed forward by this dominating political party will be there in the news. In addition to this, the authors also state that is basically taking from the book, they also state that the election system, or let's say the political party system that we are following today in India, there is a scope of, right, let's say, misuse of the powers that are given, or let's say there is always a scope of, right, using certain information, disseminating certain information which is not true, which can influence, right, the public opinion, etc. So these are certain important points given in this editorial, right, mostly important for mains examination. Next, accountability of judiciary. Right, the accountability of judiciary. How can you hold how can you hold judiciary accountable? Now, this has become important. Again, this is more relevant for mains examination. And by the way, I am not going to discuss how the judges are removed or impeached here, because earlier I have discussed this, Chetan sir has discussed this, and even Abhishek sir also has discussed this. And in the article, what are the important points? Although a lot of stories are given, what are the important points? Point number one, after independence in India, there have been 7 cases or 7 examples where the justices have been sought to be removed or impeached. Right? Although none of them have been very successful, 7 instances are there. Generally, whenever you talk about removal of a judge, the 2 grounds on which a judge can be removed is either the proved misbehavior or incapacity. Proved misbehavior or incapacity. And this has become important in the context of the statements which were given by the justice from Allahabad High Court. Now, what are the important points here? Although 7 instances are there, in none of the instances I said the judge has been removed or impeached. Why? Either the judge, whenever the committee is set up, because in the process of impeaching the justices like this or judge like this, a 3-member committee is supposed to be set up, which will basically investigate and submit a report, based on which the houses in the parliament will vote. Argument here is, in some of the instances, when the committee has taken up, investigated, submitted the report, the parliament has failed in approving the removal of a judge. Right? Because whenever you vote in the house, you require certain majority. We have not been able to get the majority. That is the failure of parliament. Failure of parliament, despite the committee, or let's say the 3-member committee saying that the judge in the question, the allegations are true. The parliament has failed because the sufficient number of votes were not obtained. Second, in many cases, when the parliament is supposed to take up the matter for discussion, that is, a motion has been introduced to remove a judge, the parliament is supposed to take up. The judge has basically resigned. Judge has basically resigned. And in one instance, and that is in fact the first case in India, in case of Justice V. Ramaswamy, the parliament failed. Right? The sufficient votes were not obtained to remove the judge. He continued to remain a judge, but please understand, there were no allocation of cases done to this justice. No cases were allocated to be handled. So he finished the tenure, and basically after the tenure started enjoying the benefits of retirement. So the contention that has been provided in the article is simple. Multiple instances are there where we have used the constitutional provisions to hold judiciary accountable, specifically in the context of, right, let's say the misdemeanors or misbehavior. But what has happened is, because of these kinds of instances where judges have resigned by themselves, judges have, or the judge has retired, even though the parliament was not successful in getting the votes, right, etc. Because of these kind of examples, in truest sense, we have not been able to hold the judiciary accountable. That is, the judges have not been held accountable in truest sense. Why? Look at the example given here. Justice Ramaswamy, Justice V. Ramaswamy, I said, completed the tenure, retired as a justice, and after that, he was appointed to head Tamil Nadu Law Commission. He was appointed to head the Tamil Nadu Law Commission. So the question is, if you are a public servant, if you become an IS officer and let's say there are allegations against you, allegations are proven, then investigations are conducted, you will be penalized, you can be sent to jail, you will not be allowed to hold public offices later, etc. Where are these kind of repercussions in case of justices? Where are these kind of actions against these kind of justices? Because the constitutional provision, that is specifically Article 124, the provision doesn't have clarity or doesn't provide clarity regarding once, let's say, the whole process is over, whether you have been successful to remove, impeach, or you are not successful. What is to be done after that? What is to be done after that? Because once the judge will resign, right, let's say investigations are being conducted or motion is being introduced in the parliament, the judge resigns. Over. The whole process becomes useless. There is no clarity in the constitution. That's the reason the article simply says we have not been able to hold the justices accountable, right? In the truest sense, we have not been able to hold them accountable. Done? Right? So these are certain important points in the article. Next, MP government begins disposal of toxic waste from Union Carbide factory. December 1984. December 2nd and 3rd, 1984. One of the most dangerous or devastating industrial accident took place in India. I'm talking about Union Carbide factory accident. Thousands of people on this night had to inhale the, right, let's say the emissions that came from this accident, and even today, you can see the aftermath of this accident. There was a leakage of methyl isocyanate. And this, right, let's say leakage, according to the experts, this leakage, which was caused back in 1984, 40 years are over, it has basically polluted the underground water in this region. It has polluted even the soil. According to various experts, even today, 350 tons of the polluted waste is present in this region, that is the Union Carbide factory. Despite a Supreme Court of India issuing orders, despite, right, many experts pleading to the government to take care of these waste, etc., nothing has been done so far. Very recently, the Madhya Pradesh High Court took up the matter and it has directed the government that is the Central Pollution Control Board as well as the Madhya Pradesh Pollution Control Board, to ensure that the waste, the toxic waste which is present even today should be removed. In the next couple of days or couple of weeks, this should be removed and the report should be submitted back. And according to the order that has been issued by the High Court, now, right, the Madhya Pradesh government has begun the disposal of the toxic waste from the Union Carbide factory. This is essentially the update. The authorities involved here are the Central Pollution Control Board and the State Pollution Control Board. Okay, right. So this is just related to prelims, certain update. Next, right, related to the flights, related to civil aviation. 3 very important events have taken place very recently. All of them, right, not required. Right, let's say all of them gruesome events. One, Russia, basically the allegation is that Russia used the drones to basically shoot down an aeroplane, right? And this is allegation which has been raised by Azerbaijan president. As of now, I repeat, as of now, Russia has not accepted that it was them who have shot it down and they have not taken responsibility. Although the head of Russia, Mr. Putin, spoke to the president of Azerbaijan. He said, basically the documents say, he said that he is basically sorry that this incident has happened. But as of now, Russian president has not taken the responsibility for this. This is one. Second one is, basically there is one more, right, let's say the plane crash that has happened yesterday. More than 100 people have died because of that. Again, raises a lot of concerns. Third one, in India, right, in India, in recent times, there have been multiple instances, and that is what is written in this editorial. In recent times, there have been multiple instances where we have seen the planes coming very close to each other. When one is taking off, another one is landing, where the planes have veered off, right, basically deviated from the runway, have hit some other barricade, etc. So all these 3 articles are associated with the aviation market itself. So what are the important points that you need to take out from these articles? Point number 1, essentially these 2 articles call for lowering down of, right, let's say the attacks that are taking place between Russia and Ukraine. The argument here is the drones have been used by the Russian forces to shoot at this aeroplane where multiple people have died. More than 30 people have died. Even the video of this, right, went viral very recently. So we have to reduce, right, let's say the level of attacks which are taking place. We have to reduce the impact of all of it, right? Otherwise, in the coming days, there might be more such events where precious lives will be lost because there is one country annexing or attacking another country, right? That is in a nutshell what is given in these 2 articles. Of course, the president of Azerbaijan has asked for, right, let's say accountability from the side of Russia. They have not given any kind of a clarity as of now, right? He has asked that the president of Russia must apologize. He has apologized, but not for, right, let's say attacking the plane, but basically that the event has happened or the incident has taken place. Okay, in addition to this, what is given in this editorial, right? What is there in this editorial? In this editorial, lot of information saying that this accident took place in that state, the Mangalore tabletop accident, right? Let's say what happened in Mumbai, etc., etc. Lot of examples of accidents have been provided. Should you memorize all of it? Absolutely no. Please don't waste your time. Argument is very simple. In case of India, the corporates, that is the private sector, is present in the civil aviation market. And whenever you talk about private sector, please remember the focus will always be on profitability. And in order to earn profitability, there is a lot of pressure on the cabin crew to provide services. Lot of pressure, much bigger pressure on the pilots, right? Regarding how many flights they are supposed to pilot, how many hours in a week they are supposed to travel, etc., etc. Lot of pressure is there. In order to meet the targets, in order to, right, let's say meet the standards that have been set up by the civil aviation companies, in many instances, the pilots have made a mistake. And mind you, when a pilot makes a mistake, who's carrying, let's say, 100 souls or 150 souls or 200 souls like this, if there is any mistake from the side of the pilot, essentially everybody will blame the pilot. But what about the company which has put undue pressure, has increased the number of working hours, wants the pilot to meet these kind of norms, etc.? Why are they not being held accountable? That is the first question. Second question, in many cases, the company is held accountable, but the penalty that is imposed will be just laughable. Right? I'll give you one example, not related to, let's say, civil aviation, but I'll give you one example. Very recently in railways, a company which will supply drinking water was penalized because the issuer, or let's say the sellers, were charging 5 rupees extra. So the government penalized the company. But don't you think when the penalties are imposed, penalties should be steep enough to prohibit this kind of an event from happening again? When you impose a penalty which is very small to a company which earns crores of rupees on day-to-day basis, do you think the company will be afraid of committing the same mistake, committing the same thing again in the future? Same argument you can talk in the context of, let's say, why government essentially increased traffic violations or the penalty on traffic violations. Because earlier the traffic violations, such as you breaking a signal, you will be penalized 100 rupees. That 100 rupees for many people is laughable. That's the reason, increase the penalty. Make it 1,000, make it 10,000, make it 5,000. Automatically the penalty will start pinching the violations or violators. So that's the reason the author simply says the DGCA, Directorate General for Civil Aviation, that is the regulatory authority, by the way. DGCA has conducted investigation. In many cases, the mistake has been put on the shoulders of the pilot. He has been blamed or she has been blamed. And in many cases, the company has been held in violation, Basically, penalties have been imposed, but the penalties are very, very small. In such competitive market, if there is no prohibition in the form of, let's say, high penalties, then these kind of instances, these kind of accidents are bound to happen again in the future. That is basically the gist of the article provided here. So the regulator must, basically regulate in a much better or much efficient manner. Okay, I think this will be the last question, last article for today. Modi announces a series of events to mark 75 years of Constitution. 26th November 2024 marks a very important day because we completed 75 years of Indian Constitution. 75 years. And to commemorate, to celebrate the 75 years of Indian Constitution, the government of India has announced 1 year of various activities to basically promote ideals of Indian Constitution. That announcement has been done, and one very important announcement within this is that government has set up a new portal, a new website has been set up. That is constitution75.com. I visited the website. You can also do that. Lot of information you can get. You can even read out Constitution, ask questions about Constitution, read out the Constitution, make a video, upload on this, etc. Done? So this is one more very important article. Now, key answers, MCQ 56. Ministry announces, that is the Finance Ministry announces interest rates on SSS on quarterly basis. Yes. Small savings schemes carry sovereign guarantee. Yes. All the amount collected under the SSS are counted as part of Consolidated Fund of India. No, it is a public account out of Consolidated Fund. Okay, so first two are correct. Right option will be option B, only two. MCQ 57. NRIs are allowed to vote in Indian elections since the implementation of Representation of People's Act? No. Proxy voting and electronically transmitted postal ballot system is not available to any elector in India. Any elector in India? No, it is available. Kerala has the highest number of overseas electors. Please remember the term overseas electors, because many of the times you'll simply read the statement Kerala has the highest number of electors, and you'll simply say no way, UP is the most populated state. It should be the right one. It is overseas electors. Statement is correct. Right option is option A, only one is true. MCQ 58. Under this, that is a PM internship scheme, the applicant has to be in the age group of 21 to 24 years. Yes. The government monthly will provide 5,000 rupees. Wrong. Government will provide 4,500. The company is allowed to count only the 500 rupee per month. In addition to 500 rupee, other expenses, for example, trading expenditure is also allowed. So second and third are incorrect. The first one is correct. Right option is option A, only one. So I'm done with the articles as well as the questions. Some of the questions that were put in the form of comments in the yesterday's video I've taken up. So first one, what is a trickle-down theory? Trickle-down theory essentially is a political theory where the argument is you provide benefits to the rich class in the society, let's say businessmen in the society. The benefits of this will flow down to other sections of the society. For example, if government will reduce the tax rate to let's say 0%, hypothetically, if government will reduce the tax rate to 0%, rich people will save a lot of money. They will spend money, invest more money to set up companies. More investment, more employment. More employment means the lower class of the society will also get the benefit in terms of wages, salaries, etc. That is a trickle-down theory. It doesn't work out. It has failed in many countries. Very recently, UK tried it. Explain so much confusing terms such as capital account, current account, reserve tranche, balance of payment. Essentially, one full chapter. So, capital and current account are part of balance of payments. Balance of payments essentially consist of all the records that are conducted between one country with the rest of the world. You receive investments, you pay for imports, whatever it is. The transaction between one country and the rest of the world are recorded in India by RBI, called as a balance of payment. The balance of payment is divided into current account and capital, although the IMF says there has to be three. In India, two accounts are there. One is current, the second one is capital and financial account. The current account will have transactions which are mainly associated with national income, whereas capital account and financial account will consist of transactions which are associated with the assets and liabilities. Okay. Reserve tranche is also called as a gold tranche. It is a facility that is provided by IMF to its member countries, where some amount you can take in the form of a loan without paying any charges to IMF. That is called as a reserve tranche. Okay. Legal backing of MSP is feasible. There are benefits, there are concerns. Right. So question should be based on that kind of argument. What are the issues? What are the benefits? Benefits will be farmers do not have to go for distress sale. Farmers will have guaranteed money when they sell in the market, etc. It will help in promotion of diversification of the cropping. But at the same point of time, where is the money available for the government? What about fiscal deficit? Where is the storage facility available for the government? Will you not violate, let's say, the MSP law? Will you not violate agreement on agriculture under WTO? Okay. Headline and core inflation. I've discussed this in earlier one of the sessions. Headline and core. Let's say CPI. How many commodities are there in the CPI basket? 299 commodities. Headline I'm talking about, and let's say combined I'm talking about. If you take all the 299 articles, calculate inflation, headline. But if you remove some of the articles and calculate inflation for the remaining, that is core. Okay. There was one question in UPSC prelims this year. The demand and supply of foreign currency is determined by the central bank. Kindly explain whether it is true or not. Please understand, the question was actually assertion and reasoning question. The value of national currency is determined by demand and supply of foreign currency is called as a flexible exchange rate. Flexible exchange rate essentially means a floating exchange rate. That is, how much is the supply, how much is the demand in the market will determine what is exchange rate. India follows a flexible exchange rate, a type of that which is called as a modified flexible or modified floating exchange rate, wherein majority of the time it is the market that will determine the exchange rate. Only certain times when the rupee is under pressure, like it is now, RBI will intervene. RBI will intervene. So if you talk about, let's say, the Indian system, it is more of a flexible exchange rate. Demand and supply of foreign currency is being determined by the central bank. This is an extreme statement in the context of India. No, only RBI doesn't determine it, right? If you import, export, if you invest, if you send remittances back to India, right, all these features, all these economic activities will contribute to the exchange rate, right? So this was a let's say question asked in UPPSC. What is what is SDR facility? What is this quota? My dear, please understand, yesterday itself I've discussed what is SDR. It is a notional asset, reserve asset, which is created and issued by IMF. How does IMF issue this? There is something called as a quota. Quota means a number representing importance of a country. How do you calculate quota? This is the formula. Don't waste your time by memorizing the formula. Remember, 4 factors are there in decreasing order of their importance: GDP, openness, variability, and reserves which are held by the member country. And a whole bracket, there is a compression factor. Don't worry about the formula. These are the 4 factors which are used to calculate quota. Quota will be used to determine STR, voting right, borrowing limit, etc. Finally, elaborate on the impact of rupee depreciation on the economy. Whenever rupee depreciates, please remember, when rupee depreciates, imports will become, when rupee depreciates, exports are expected to become. Doesn't happen in reality because there is something else. Exports are supposed to become more competitive, right? Cheaper in the international market. Imports, right, are expected to become costlier. Trade deficit is expected to increase, right, etc., etc. Done? So these were the questions which were basically put in the form of a comment in yesterday's session. If you have any questions, do let me know in the comment section of this video. I'll take it up and address it tomorrow. So thanks a lot for joining this particular live session. If you like this initiative, do hit the like button. And if you're yet to subscribe to our YouTube channel, kindly do it right now. Thank you. Have a great day.